Good morning, students. Today, I have the dubious honour of being your physics reader once again in this grand and fecund-smelling college here at Cambridge University. I regret to inform you that your previous reader met with an unexpected bout of death last night. There was a slim chance he might make a miraculous recovery, but someone apparently drove a stake through his chest at the morgue, so no, he won't be returning. For those of you who missed my prior introduction, I am, by trade, a professional Shakespearean actor, a purveyor of pantomimes, on occasion advertisements for digestive remedies. However, due to those infernal diversity, equity and inclusion policies at Job Centre Plus, I'm now obliged to take whatever role they hand me. And that, tragically, includes reading on theoretical physics at the Cavendish Laboratory. God save us all! Now, you? Yes, you in the back row. Don't think I haven't noticed you, you scruffy little miscreant. Sit down this instant, or I'll personally see to it that you wake up in a ditch in Shoreditch. And let me tell you, Bethnal Green isn't a place you want to find yourself on a Sunday morning. Trust me on that. Today's topic is Schrödinger's cat. Ahem. Now, I'll admit, I have absolutely no idea who this Schrödinger fellow is, nor what his cat has to do with anything. But since none of you seemed to absorb anything from my last reading, I've decided not to trouble myself with learning anything for this one either. I do have some lecture notes here, though I suspect that a dramatic interpretation will do far more for your intellectual growth than any tedious facts or figures. After all, life, much like the theatre, is about two things: confidence and a lightning-fast right hook, or, as Benedict Cumberbatch once growled at me in his dressing room, "Get out, or I'll nobble you." A piece of advice I've taken to heart ever since. So let us begin this enlightening journey, and if you have any questions, please save them for after I've made my grand exit. I don't respond well to criticism. It's not in my contract. Imagine, if you will, a cat. A rather smug cat, as all cats tend to be. This cat has been unceremoniously stuffed into a steel box. Why? Because physicists, those wily creatures who delight in cosmic absurdities, decided to play a prank on the universe. This is not just any prank, mind you. This is Schrödinger's cat, a paradoxical creature poised precariously on the brink of existence and non-existence, all thanks to the marvellously baffling rules of quantum mechanics. Now, before we dive headfirst into this feline farce, let us set the stage. And believe me, as a great Thespian of great renown, at least on the docks in Wapping, I know a lot about stages. The box, cold and unyielding, houses not only the unfortunate cat, but also a diabolical contraption, a Geiger counter, a pinch of radioactive material, a flask of poison, and some infernal wiring designed by someone who clearly needed a hobby. The entire setup is like a Heath Robinson invention gone existentially rogue. One could imagine the contraption as an avant-garde stage prop for a particularly ambitious production of Hamlet, one in which Benedict Cumberbatch is, of course, the Prince of Denmark. Again! I mean, how many bleeding times does he have to hog the limelight while us poor bleeding spear carriers have to hang out in the wings while he waffles on about being and not being, just like that bloody cat? The key to this whimsical torment is the radioactive material. You see, it has an annoying habit of decaying when you're not looking, or not decaying, or possibly doing both. Physics, being the trickster god of the intellectual pantheon, insists that this ambiguity is perfectly fine. But here's where things get really interesting. The cat's fate, its aliveness or deadness, is inextricably tied to the whims of a single subatomic particle. If the particle decays, the Geiger counter ticks, the poison is released, and the cat kicks the proverbial bucket. If not, the cat continues its nap, blissfully unaware of its cosmic celebrity status. Now, according to the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, which sounds like the title of a mystery novel set in Denmark, until someone opens the box and has a peek, the cat is both alive and dead, simultaneously. Yes, dear reader, simultaneously. Like a particularly indecisive deity, the universe simply cannot make up its mind about the cat until it is forced to. Much like the old Vic couldn't decide who to cast as Hamlet in their latest run, when I was so obviously the right Ham for the Hamlet. But, oh no, director's bloody pet got chosen again, and guess who that was? Benedict Bleeding Cumberbatch. Again. Oh right, back to the science. The notion of a cat that is both alive and dead is, of course, absurd. Cats are creatures of determination, not indecision. Anyone who has tried to move a lounging cat knows this to be true. But quantum mechanics, with its penchant for the counterintuitive, doesn't care about your earthly logic. It insists that the cat exists in a superposition of states, which is physics speak for not making sense in the usual way. A little like casting a Hamlet where the ghost of King Hamlet is inexplicably played by Benedict Cumberbatch in a dual role. Bastard! No one is really sure if he is acting, or if he is just acting that he is acting. Is Benedict Cumberbatch both an actor and not an actor at the same time? Or has he approached a level of the performing arts that has sailed into the stratosphere and left the bloody stage altogether? And that is a level of inverted logic that goes far beyond artistic endeavour. Erwin Schrödinger, on the other hand, the mastermind behind this zoological enigma, wasn't actually trying to doom cats to eternal paradoxes. No, he was making a point. In 1935, during a correspondence with Albert Einstein, who had a knack for asking tricky questions, Schrödinger proposed this thought experiment to highlight what he saw as the absurdity of the Copenhagen interpretation. It was, essentially, a cosmic jest, a reductio ad absurdum, to point out that quantum mechanics might be missing something. A cat, after all, cannot be both alive and dead, unless, of course, it is auditioning for a particularly avant-garde production of Hamlet. Einstein, who was fond of using thought experiments to poke holes in the prevailing quantum theories, enthusiastically agreed. In fact, he'd already cooked up his own scenario involving a keg of gunpowder in a superposition of exploded and unexploded states. One wonders what the health and safety officials of the universe thought of all this. Together, these two titans of physics wrestled with the peculiar implications of quantum theory, exchanging letters that probably made their postal carrier feel oddly implicated in the mysteries of the cosmos. One can only imagine how Einstein would have reacted had he learned that even Hamlet could succumb to the same monopolizing tendencies of Benedict Cumberbatch. The Schrödinger's cat paradox does more than just bemuse and befuddle. It strikes at the heart of quantum mechanics' most vexing question: what constitutes a measurement? When does the quantum realm, with its superpositions and uncertainties, collapse into the solid, everyday reality we all begrudgingly accept as real? To physicists, this is known as the measurement problem. To the cat, it is probably known as, "Please get me out of this box." And to Benedict Cumberbatch, it is likely just another metaphor for a tortured soliloquy. By the way, I'm pretty bloody sure Benedict Cumberbatch couldn't even play the Cat in the Hat down at the local panto. Not the way I do. Various interpretations of quantum mechanics have taken a stab at resolving this quandary. The Copenhagen interpretation, as we've discussed, plays coy, leaving the cat's fate undecided until someone bothers to check. Then there's the von Neumann-Wigner interpretation, which proposes that consciousness itself is the key to collapsing the wave function. This suggests that the cat, being less than lucid, or simply disinterested, cannot observe itself into a single state. Poor cat. Poor Hamlet, too, having to contend with Cumberbatch's brooding interpretation in every revival. And then there's the many worlds interpretation. Hugh Everett, a man clearly unafraid of cosmic clutter, proposed in 1957 that every possible outcome of a quantum event actually occurs, but in separate parallel universes. In one universe, the cat is alive and smugly cleaning itself. In another, it is deceased and perhaps pondering existential questions from beyond. These universes, conveniently, do not interact, sparing us the logistical nightmare of reconciling a multiverse of cats. Still other interpretations exist, each more delightfully bizarre than the last. The transactional interpretation, for example, suggests that waves of possibility travel forward and backward in time, resolving themselves into reality through a sort of cosmic handshake. Meanwhile, objective collapse theories propose that superpositions collapse spontaneously when certain thresholds are reached, sparing the poor cat the indignity of being both alive and dead for too long, much like the collapse of other actors' dreams when Benedict swoops in to dominate yet another Hamlet. In the ensemble interpretation, physicists sidestep the paradox entirely by declaring that the wave function applies only to large groups of experiments, not individual cases. This, of course, reduces our hapless feline to a mere statistic, which seems terribly unfair to the cat. The relational interpretation, on the other hand, posits that the state of the cat depends on the observer. To the Geiger counter, the cat's fate is decided as soon as the particle decays or doesn't. To the physicist outside the box, the cat's state remains unresolved until the box is opened. This interpretation essentially declares that reality is a matter of perspective, which seems like a very cat-like way of thinking. What does all this mean for the cat? Nobody really knows. Quantum mechanics, for all its elegance and predictive power, remains a deeply mysterious field, one that challenges our fundamental notions of reality. Schrödinger's cat, like a particularly enigmatic Zen cone, forces us to confront the limits of our understanding. Meanwhile, the cat itself, be it alive, dead, or existentially confused, has achieved a level of cultural immortality rivaling that of the Cheshire Cat or Garfield. It graces T-shirts, inspires memes, and serves as a reminder that even the most arcane corners of science can produce ideas that capture the imagination of the world. So the next time you encounter a cat lounging in a sunbeam, staring off into the middle distance with an inscrutable expression, remember Schrödinger's thought experiment. The cat knows something you don't. It knows it's screwed, or maybe it doesn't. Or perhaps it simultaneously does and doesn't. Either way, the universe remains as delightfully perplexing as ever. And now let me just say it. Benedict Cumberbatch stole every role I ever wanted at the Old Vic. Hamlet, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern. You name it. I was a dead certainty for Laertes, but no, here comes Benedict with his cheekbones and his smouldering intensity. Oh, Benedict's Hamlet is definitive, they said. Definitive? What about my Hamlet, huh? What about my Ophelia? Yes, I played Ophelia once, and I wept real tears every night. But no, the world must bow at the altar of Cumberbatch. He's everywhere, dominating the stage and stealing the limelight. Do you know what it's like to see a man monopolize Hamlet while you're relegated to understudy for the gravedigger? It's existential cruelty. Schrödinger's cat may exist in superposition, but my career exists solely in the shadow of Benedict Cumberbatch's overachieving charisma. That bastard! And so, you wart-encrusted, baboon-faced cretins, today's marvellous reading on Schrödinger's cat comes to an end here at Maxwell's lecture room in the Cavendish Laboratory. I trust you basked in the eloquence of my soliloquy. Who knows, if they pay me more next time, I might actually consider enjoying this. After all, I do like to eat. Now, let me pause to acknowledge those who assisted with this presentation. Naturally, I was the principal actor, but let's give credit where it's due. Mrs. Irwin McSchrödinger, the last living descendant of Schrödinger himself, the Cambridge Doo-Wop Choral Society for their delightful backing music, and finally, the exquisite cat illustrations provided by the Louis Wain estate. What? Louis Wain? The same Louis Wain who was the subject of The Electrical Life of Louis Wain, starring Claire Foy and, yes, bloody Cumberbatch! It's him again! Even psychedelic cats from the 19th century are under the cursed, megalomaniacal tyranny of Benedict Cumberbatch! Right then, students. Now clear off and find gainful employment, street sweeping or something equally noble, because I feel the vapours coming on. And let me assure you, for that sort of thing, you need just the right sort of ether, the kind that keeps the liver intact while still leaving room for improvement in grammar and flow.